Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Elan's Matchup Maximizer, podcast presented by Keeping Carlson, where I, Elan Dubrovsky, take a look at next week's NHL schedule, try to figure out who are the teams and players we should be targeting to maximize our chances of winning our head-to-head matchups. Oh my gosh, it's been a minute, but here we are finally looking at a regular week of fantasy hockey. It's been like a month. We're right now right near the end of this crazy matchup on Yahoo. If you're in a Yahoo league that started before the Olympics, is ending tomorrow. I'm in a super tight one in my Tier 3 Young B division. A little frustrating. I'm against the top seeded team. Both of us would be beating a lot of the other teams in the division, but that's how it goes sometimes, where you end up going against the best and you just got to hope that you can come out ahead, or else it'll be very frustrating. We'll see how that goes, but we're looking at the week for this episode, March 2nd to March 8th. This is the second last week of the regular season for anyone playing in the Keeping Carlson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League, so huge stakes. We don't want to blow it, and you know what? The schedule for next week is kind of fun. It's kind of like easy in terms of streaming. Like, I don't know how necessary this podcast is. So turn it off right now. Just kidding. Listen if you want. But here's the schedule. Every day there's a good number of games. There's no days where there's like two teams playing, right? The least is Wednesday, where there's 5 games, so 10 teams playing. The most teams playing in a day is Tuesday and Saturday. Each of those days has 22 teams playing. So depending on your roster, you may be able to fit in someone on every single day. It depends. I looked at my Kakupful team, Keeping Carlson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League. I can fit someone on Tuesday. I can't fit someone on Saturday, even though it's the same number of teams playing, right? So you really have to go set your roster, take a look at where you have openings. It may even come down to, like, I can fit a left wing on Saturday only. I could fit a D on Tuesday. So as far as this episode goes, I'm going to look at the teams that play 4 or 3 times, avoiding Tuesday, Saturday, because those are pretty much guaranteed you're going to be able to fit them in. But again, if you could fit someone on Tuesday, if you can fit someone on Saturday, the world's kind of your oyster. You can do whatever you want. You can look at any of these teams playing 4 times. You can go with a fun strategy. Even a team that plays 3 times, you look at the Seattle Kraken. They play Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, so they don't fit the bill of a team I'm going to be mentioning too much in this episode, but you could grab someone for the Monday, Wednesday, then move on Thursday to a team like, I don't know, Tampa Bay. They go Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. So if you give it to someone on Saturday, that's a pretty good 5-day week you can make for yourself. So you've really got to take a look. But let's have some fun. Let's take a look at some of these teams with the very best schedules and the guaranteed games played for pretty much anybody. Might as well start with the only team playing 4 times, all on off days. That's the Detroit Red Wings, giving us the vaulted, exalted, what's the right word here? Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. It's the best you can get. And so you're going to be able to fit all 4 of those games with your Red Wings streamer. We haven't done this for a while. Like, I'm going to look at some players that you may be able to add from Detroit. And of course, it depends on your league. But I'm thinking anyone who's, let's say, rostered less than 40% on Yahoo might fit someone's roster listening, depending on how shallow your league is. So you're not going to get a Sider, Larkin, DeBrincat, Raymond. No chance. And if you're in a shallow league, maybe Patrick Kane could be available to you. Only 31% rostered. Kane has been super cold, right? Like, before the break, he was pointless in 3 straight. Didn't get any points in the first game back on, Thursday against Ottawa. He did take 4 shots, though. I'm recording this right now. It's around 7:30 on Saturday. So a little, not the best timing, because a bunch of games have just started. So right now it's 0-0. Or actually, no, Detroit's now losing 1-0 to Carolina. So we'll see how Patrick Kane finishes off this game. If we look at the Detroit lines going into today's game against Carolina, it looks like they're rocking Marco Kasper on the top line with Larkin and Lucas Raymond, and then Alex DeBrincat, Kopp, and Kane. So definitely the 2 names that jump out to me are Marco Kasper and Andrew Kopp, who are likely available to you and potentially in a really good spot. Kasper is only 4% rostered on Yahoo. Andrew Kopp, 5% rostered. Kasper hasn't been doing too much in terms of points, only 1 goal in his last 7 games or so, but he's been taking shots, he's been throwing hits. Got to imagine the longer he sticks with Larkin and Raymond, the more likely it is he's going to start to produce at some point or get bumped. That's another option. I don't know if by next Sunday Casper's still there, but I think that's a pretty fun stream for as long as he's on the top line. I don't see how you can argue against it, especially if your league has some value for hits. Andrew Kopp's been super quiet, so a lot less exciting. There's just something about like Larkin and Raymond. Like, of course, DeBrincat and Patrick Kane are good, but I would take Marco Casper playing with Larkin and Raymond. If you want a defenseman, Ben Sherratt is always your like solid. You're going to get your hits and your blocks, maybe a shot or two. Also very quiet lately, but a decent. Also, Simon Edvinsson might be available to you. And Edvinsson had 2 shots and 5 blocks in the first game back against Ottawa. We'll see if he does anything today. So those are some fun names on the Red Wings. Next up, we've got a bunch of teams that play on 3 days. I'll tell you the teams that play 3 off-day games, but 4 days overall, since maybe you can actually fit that extra game. So let's start with the Vegas Golden Knights. They play Tuesday, Wednesday against Buffalo and Detroit, and then Friday, Sunday. So a pretty nice stream. You could even maybe grab someone else Monday and then switch over to your Vegas person on Tuesday, depending on how you want to play it. Though maybe the reason why you're listening to this episode now is to figure out your moves for the end of this week. As far as Vegas's available players go, you're obviously not going to get an Eichel, a Marner, Hurdle, Theodore, Mark Stone. Like, forget about it. Dorofiev, Rasmus Anderson. That's a pretty top-heavy team. If you can get Ivan Barbashev, I like Barbashev playing with Eichel and Stone. So yeah, the lines yesterday, Vegas isn't playing today. They did play yesterday, and they're going to play against Sunday. So this could actually be a Sunday savior that leads into good schedule the next week. So that's pretty hard to beat if you need some help right now. Of course, the downside is that might mean a lot of the Vegas guys are taken. So if you can get Barbashev, go for it. But he's up to 37% roster. I think he's 100% in Cupful. So you're not going to get him in a lot of leagues. There's a couple D that have been producing a little bit lately. Like Braden McNabb came back from his injury after the Olympics. 2 assists against LA, along with 4 shots and 4 blocks and 2 hits. And then yesterday against Washington, another assist, 6 hits and 2 blocks. So in Cupful, that's really great. Of course, those assists probably won't keep coming, but you're probably going to have consistent hits and blocks there from Braden McNabb. So for a Sunday game followed by 4 games the next week, assuming you can fit all 4 of those games from McNabb in Vegas, I feel like that's a pretty solid bet. You're getting a floor at least, right? Like I would say you're going to get 10 fantasy points next week, like for the Cupful scoring. So 2.5 points per game. I think that's your floor. And then if you get an assist in there, all of a sudden you're at 13. You know, I think that this could be a lot better than it seems when you compare to some of your other streaming options. Of course, now watch him have like a couple cardio sessions, but that doesn't seem too likely with a guy like McNabb. The lines have been, so it's been Eichel, Stone, and Barbashev, then Marner, Dorofiev, and Riley Smith was on the line with Marner and Dorofiev in that game yesterday. He didn't do anything, but he did take 3 shots and had a block. He did have Riley Smith a goal and an assist in the game before versus LA. If that holds, could be interesting. But I mean, at the end of the day, what are you going to do? Like, I don't know. If I wouldn't be banking too big on a Riley Smith, and I feel like the lines can change. Tomas Hurdle was centering a third line with Braden Bowman and Keegan Kolazar. So, you know, Braden Bowman, there were moments where he was looking good. That was when he was on the top line, Bowman, and also like top power play. But look, Bowman did score a goal in that 3-2 loss to Washington, and he had 2 assists in the game before versus LA. I would go Braden Bowman over Riley Smith for what it's worth. And then when you come down to like if you can fit all the games from Bowman or from Braden McNabb, I feel like it's going to be close. I feel like maybe I would just take McNabb for the safer bet, especially if maybe you're low on D and this could end up being a potential D hold. Also, by the way, Jeremy Lauzon, if he's available, he had 10 hits a couple games ago against LA, 4 hits versus Washington. But I don't know. Like, for some reason, McNabb just strikes me as someone who maybe has a bet. I don't even know why. I don't know. Both of them are the same, actually. They're both fine. Like, they're both. So, yeah, everything I said about McNabb, you can probably throw over to Jeremy Lauzon as well. But yeah, I think you're looking at like a Braden Bowman as a potential interesting option there on Vegas, especially if that deployment holds and he sticks with at least Tomas Hurdle. You know, Hurdle's pretty good. Okay, so next up, another team that plays 4 times with 3 off-day games is the Vancouver Canucks. It's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So that means you maybe can't fit the Saturday, but you could always drop for the weekend and add someone else. Maybe you could fit a goalie on Saturday. So the tricky thing with Vancouver is they're in selling mode, and I don't know even if there's going to be a trade before the week is over, and then this person doesn't get the games. Like a name that jumps out to me is maybe an Evander Kane. Kane has been playing on the top line lately with Jake DeBrusk and Elias Pettersson, which is pretty good. And Kane, for all of his struggles and whatnot, he still gets his shots. He had 4 shots and a goal in the last game versus Winnipeg, 5 shots a couple games ago, right before the Olympics. So Kane has it in him, and if he's getting good deployment, that's better. Still no top power play for Evander Kane, but I think he's an interesting option for as long as he's on that top line. And then I guess similarly, you can look like a Jake DeBrusk, who is actually Kane and DeBrusk are both available in like a couple division. No one has any time for any of these Vancouver guys. So DeBrusk has been super cold, even colder than Evander Kane. But again, the deployment is top line, top power play. It is the Vancouver top line and top power play. So I don't know how much to expect, but I think either a Jake DeBrusk or an Evander Kane, you can do like a lot worse. Especially with a Monday, Wednesday, Friday to start the week. You could also go Connor Garland, who finally broke onto the score sheet after being quiet like forever. Right before the Olympics, he had 2 assists against Utah, then an assist against Vegas. Nothing in that game against Winnipeg. We'll see how he does today against Seattle. That's going to be a 10 p.m. Eastern game, so maybe you'll be listening to this before that game even happened, depending on how fast I can get this episode out and how fast you listen to it. But those are some names that I would potentially look at. Like, what is even the second line? So they've had DeBrusk, Pettersson, Kane, Garland with Liam Ogren and Bluger, and then Drew O'Connor with Besser and Marco Rossi. And then Marco Rossi has been on the top power play with Pettersson, Besser, DeBrusk, Filip Hronek. So I guess Marco Rossi, in terms of deployment, not too shabby. In terms of production, yes, very shabby. So it's really hard for me to recommend a Marco Rossi who's literally done nothing since joining the Vancouver Canucks. So I think definitely if you can get a Kane or a DeBrusk, that interests me. But again, buyer beware, because they may not be on the team. And if they get traded, Jeremy mentioned it on his short shift on Thursday, which was really great, that it's very possible that then the player doesn't even play the next game because he's like traveling between teams and it's a whole thing, and it ends up being frustrating. Maybe he doesn't get out. Maybe he'll get out status if he gets traded and then isn't there in time. So at least you can stash him in IR. So anyways, food for thought. That's the Vancouver Canucks. Let's do the Toronto Maple Leafs next. Yeah, the Leafs go Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. And again, Thursday's a pretty light day, only 16 teams playing. So again, that's 3 games in 4 days. That's kind of even better than Vancouver, which was 3 games in 5 days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So, it's hard for us to rewire our brains that like Thursday is a light day, but it is next week. So the Leafs are a team that are very much struggling, and I wonder if they're also going to be selling at the deadline at this point, as they're at the bottom of their division, losing to everyone. So the top line in the last game was Matthews, Nyes, or they're playing right now actually against Ottawa, so I could even give you the lines for today's game going into the game. Matthews with Nyes and Max Domi, so there you go. You look at like a Max Domi as someone in a good spot. Of course, again, kind of like with Marco Rossi, like the downside is it is Max Domi, who, like, no matter what spot he's in, generally doesn't produce. So there was a good run, actually, around the end of January where Domi was pointing in almost every game. He went quiet at the start of February, didn't do anything in those first 2 games after the Olympics. I have a lot of trouble banking on a Max Domi. And then the other line, Michelli, Tavares, Nylander. So that means Bobby McMahon in the bottom 6. I thought we all liked Bobby McMahon and we expected him to stick in the top 6. So I guess the Leafs need to try a lot of things here. Do we want a Michelli playing with Tavares and Nylander? Again, it's kind of like a Max Domi. It's hard for me to recommend, which makes it really tough to recommend any Toronto Maple Leaf. So sorry, I don't know. I can't think of anyone really that's exciting to me to recommend on this team. So they have a good schedule, and 3 games in 4 days. Probably Max Domi gets a point. Probably Bobby McMahon, even in the bottom 6, gets a point. He might not be available. 18% rostered. We may need to talk about Bobby McMahon as a snoozer at some point. Pointless in those 2 games after the break. Pointless today. I know he's rostered in a lot of leagues. He was in, but if he's not going to be in the top 6, you can't expect too much. Easton Cowan back in the lineup today, but at the bottom of the roster as well. So, I'm not seeing anything to get excited about on the Leafs. So I guess we can just move on here. Actually, why don't we take a break at this point? There's still a few more teams that have 3 off-day games, but 4 games overall. Could be worthwhile. We'll be back in a second listening to Matchup Maximizer. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is built for the fastest game on ice. With player props and live betting, every shift, every shot, every save gives you the options to get in on the game with DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm taking a look at the odds right now. I like looking at the awards. See the Norris odds there? It's basically Cale Makar and Zach Werenski, both the overwhelming favorites. Quinn Hughes is the next up. Pretty high odds. Quinn Hughes, I think he's pretty good. Maybe he has a shot. But hey, that's up for you to decide over at DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-777777 or visit ccpg.org on behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas. Wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer. Copyright 2026. NHL. All rights reserved. So sticking with the teams that have 3 off-day games, though again with the caveat that Tuesday and Saturday may be also a day where you can fit someone in, but 3 off-day games, 4 overall. Anaheim Ducks, let's go there next. They play Tuesday and then Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. So if you can't fit the Tuesday, maybe this is a team that you're just targeting come Wednesday. The thing is, this team is a bit in flux right now with the injuries. Mikhail Granlund day-to-day. Troy Terry is now day-to-day. Frank Vetrano apparently is practicing and is going to come back soon. So I could tell you the lines for their practice today, but very unlikely they hold through like Tuesday, Wednesday next week. That's a lot of days for, hopefully some of these guys to get healthy. Troy Terry, very frustrating. I've got Troy Terry. Was expecting to get him for Sunday, then a good schedule next week. Now, I don't know. My experience with Troy Terry day-to-day is that's going to be a lot of days. That's generally how it seems to go, or at least earlier this year, so I'm not banking on him. Today, they were rolling in practice. Leo Carlsson, who had a great return, right? Great couple games to start off here. After the Olympics, Carlsson, a goal and 2 assists versus Edmonton, and then a goal versus Winnipeg. I guess I could talk about that more on the mega show tomorrow with Brian, where we'll talk about some of the results so far, or all the interesting results that have happened over these last, I guess it'll have been now 4 days of NHL action, 5 including Sunday. But it was Carlson top line with Kreider and Gauthier. I had Kreider at some point. I dropped him. He was doing nothing. Now Chris Kreider's on a really nice streak. I wish I had Chris Kreider. Scored yesterday. If you can get Chris Kreider at this point, that's a slam dunk. Still only 20% rostered on Yahoo. One of these guys that just was doing nothing and made no sense to hold him, and now look at him go. I guess, you're getting really good deployment here with all the injuries, especially. There's no chance Kreider's getting moved down the lineup. There was a point where Anaheim had 2 kind of even power plays, but in the last game, it was all the time went to Kreider, Gauthier, Carlson, Beckett, Seneke, and Jackson Lacombe. So you want anyone on that top power play. The only one who might be available to you is Chris Kreider. But if you can't get a top power play guy, still some maybe interesting options. So Mason McTavish was centering Beckett, Seneke, and Veal. What's Veal's name again? Jordan Veal? Jackson Veal? Jeffrey Veal. Okay, I got there eventually. So I don't think that's going to last. Second line, Jeffrey Veal. If it did, he's good for hits. And then if he's on a line with... If you're on a line with Beckett Seneke, that's a good spot to be. Seneke is scorching lately. 3 assists in that 5-4 win over Winnipeg yesterday. So who can I recommend here, though? If you can't get Kreider, who's 20% rostered... Alex Killorn was getting top 6 deployment. He got points in each of those 2 games, so I guess. But now if he's going to be bumped to the bottom 6 when the team's already, where Jeffrey Veal is bumping him, hard to imagine that'll hold. But I guess if you're in dire straits, Alex Killorn could be something. Ryan Poehling scored a goal in the last game. I'm also kind of looking at a Frank Vetrano, who's had such a terrible season. So different than last season, and it clearly was just he's been moved down the lineup. He's been a bottom 6er, didn't get the power play time he'd been getting, but anyways, it's been a long layoff. Now he's practicing. Apparently had some personal issues, death in the family, so I don't know if Frank Vetrano has anything left of what he had the last few seasons, and I also don't know if the coach will give him an opportunity to show if he has it or not. But with injuries potentially, and if Vetrano comes back, and if you see him getting into a top 6 role, just saying, if you have an extra ad this week and you want to stash someone in IR, maybe take a chance on Frank Vetrano. Then you could leave him in IR for a game or 2, see how he looks, see how he's getting deployed, and then move on from there. You can also maybe grab a defenseman like a Radko Gudas, hits and blocks similar to those Vegas guys, Lozon and McNabb. So maybe a Gudas fits the bill there if you can fit him for all 4 of those games. So that's the Anaheim Ducks. We can go next to the Carolina Hurricanes, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So that same schedule as the Vancouver Canucks. Carolina's always pretty fun just because they have a good number of players available who are in decent roster spots. And I guess when I say good number, I'm pretty much always thinking about like Logan Stankoven and Jackson Blake, who go on little runs here and there. Logan Stankoven, a goal and an assist versus Tampa in the first game back after the Olympics against Tampa, playing today against Detroit, like I mentioned. So I don't know how that's going to turn out. It's already 2-0 for Carolina. I guess I can go and see who's scored those 2 goals. But Detroit's not playing John Gibson, so I guess this was an opportunity. Aho from Gostisbehere and Jarvis on the power play, and then Taylor Hall. Well, I'm still not going to recommend Taylor Hall, even though he scored a goal today. I'm generally interested in a Stankoven if there's a good schedule. I think he's a really good player. He's playing on a line with Taylor Hall and Jackson Blake, actually. But I would order them Stankoven, then Blake, then Hall as potential interesting Carolina guys. Blake did have an assist in that last game against Tampa. We'll see how he... maybe actually this Hall goal just happened. Maybe it was also assisted by a Stankoven or a Jackson Blake. You know how they always show... Oh, no, it didn't already happen. Okay, so I guess it was an unassisted goal. I'll have to see the replay. See if Stankoven or Blake were at least involved somewhat. So those are the main Carolina guys I think you're looking at. The top line, Aho, Jarvis, Svechnikov. You're obviously not going to find any of them. Not looking too amazing for Nikolai Ehlers deployment-wise, playing with Stahl and Martinuk. But he did score against Tampa Bay. So I guess he'll figure something out. He's riding a 3-game point streak going into today. Nikolai Ehlers, still, I'd rather see him at least in the top 6, if not the top line. Okay, so that's Carolina. We can look next at the Colorado Avalanche, who play Monday, Tuesday, and then Friday, Sunday. So this is obviously a lot more appealing if you can fit the Tuesday game. Otherwise, maybe you're just going to wait until Friday, Sunday. I don't know. I don't love the idea of streaming like a guy who can play Monday and then have to wait all the way till Friday, Sunday, unless you're just planning on dropping after the Monday. Colorado is also a team that, it's a little bit tricky to figure out how you're going to stream from them just because a lot of the stars are taken. Their top line the last game was McKinnon with Natchez and Landeskog. I doubt you can get any of them. I mean, maybe Landeskog actually only 33% roster depending on your league, had an assist in each of the games since coming back from the Olympics. We'll see how he does today against Chicago. They're at the end of the second right now. No points for Landeskog, but 3 shots and a block. It's not too bad. And then Brock Nelson centering Nichushkin and Arturi Lehkonen. Again, these are all players who are probably rostered in the majority of leagues. And then we get to the bottom 6. I like Parker Kelly. I'll just say, if your league counts hits, he's good for hits. And every once in a while, it seems like he's able to throw a couple shots on net, maybe even get a point. He had that goal and an assist in the first game back against Utah. I mean, let's not go crazy here. But if you want a bankers guy with maybe some slight offensive flair, at least taking some shots, Parker Kelly maybe is okay. Devon Taves might be out there for you because he sucks, in terms of offense. Pointless in his last 5 games now. I guess that's including today's game, so we'll see if he can break that before the end of this game against Chicago. But if you need D, gets a lot of minutes on a team that scores a lot of goals, you would think Devon Taves would be able to do something, but I don't know at this point. Maybe not. Maybe just got to forget about Devon Taves. We've got the Dallas Stars, similar schedule, Monday, Tuesday, and then Friday, Sunday. Dallas is currently without Mikko Rantanen for a long time. I believe that Jeremy talked about Matt Duchene and his hot run. So obviously at this point, you're definitely not going to be able to get Matt Duchene in any serious league. He is only 51% rostered. So that means there's a lot of leagues where it's kind of like, what's going on? 50% of Yahoo leagues, you can't find a spot for Matt Duchene, who has, I can't even count this, 2 straight multi-point games, 3 straight multi-point games, goals in the 4 previous games before that. It's a pretty nice run, okay? And Duchene playing with Steele and Ben. I guess it doesn't look so great in terms of the line combination, but doesn't matter. Those are the practice lines for today. Robertson with Johnston and Maverick Bourque, and then Duchene, Ben, and Steele. The team looks pretty shallow when you're without Rope Hintz and without Mikko Rantanen, but I'll bet you they'll still score some goals against Nashville today. But yeah, Duchene's on a run. A top power play in the last game against Seattle was Ben, Duchene, Robertson, Johnston, Heiskanen. So I guess if Hintz comes back and bumps someone, probably Ben. How can you bump Matt Duchene at this point? So anyways, you probably can't get him. So why am I talking about him so much? Jamie Benn, only 8% rostered though. So that's pretty good. Didn't get any points in that first game after the Olympics against Seattle in the 4-1 win, but Ben was on a 4-game point streak before that, and 3 of them were multi-point games. I think that's pretty good deployment, playing with Duchesne right now on the top power play. So I'll take a shot on a Jamie Benn if he's out there. If you can fit him again, if you can fit him for the Monday, Tuesday, then you can reassess if you're going to hold for the Friday, Sunday. But I think it's not too bad of an option to grab Jamie Benn there. Let's do one more team. There's another team that plays 3 off-day games, but not 4 games. It's just 3 off-day games. That's it. It's Wednesday, Friday, Sunday for the St. Louis Blues. So this would be a team that probably, if you're targeting, you're waiting till Wednesday morning, and then you're pouncing on someone. A stash opportunity, if you want, kind of in the Vetrano vein. Colton Parayko is injured. He's not like amazing, but if you can just throw him in IR right now, then have him as an option for next week if and when you want to bring him in. He is missing the 2 games this weekend, but it's back spasms. I wouldn't be surprised if with a long break, almost a week off, maybe he could be back by next Wednesday, Colton Parayko. So that's maybe an option. St. Louis just took a 3-1 loss today against New Jersey. I could tell you what the lines were in this game, though again, after a 3-1 loss, who knows if maybe they'll shift things up. Kyrou with Buchnevich and Jake Neighbors. Our recent hat trick getter, Dylan Holloway with Jonathan Berggren and Pius Suter. Snuggerud with Shen and Dvorsky. So that's, I guess, the top line there. Probably that Holloway line is the third line. In terms of minutes, it was a little bit less than the Shen, Snuggerud, Dvorsky line. Then the top power play for today was pretty even. St. Louis likes to do this and drive us crazy. Snuggerud, Holloway, Suter, Shen, and Falk on 1 unit. And then Kyrou, Buchnevich, Neighbors, Dvorsky, Broberg. So that takes the value out of everyone. It's frustrating, right? It'd be nice to just... If Jake Neighbors was playing with Kyrou and Buchnevich and on the top power play, I'd be like, okay, that's pretty good. Neighbors is playing with Kyrou and Buchnevich on the same power play and the same line. So that's not a bad spot for Jake Neighbors, who's super cold. He's probably available to you. He's done nothing in 3 straight games now, not even just 1 shot today. So it's hard to recommend him, but also it's a good it's a good deployment, right? So it's hard to not want to take a shot. So I think Buchnevich could be interesting. Then you got your Braden Shen. In your shallower leagues, Buchnevich might be available. He scored the goal today against New Jersey. I think at this point, why should Buchnevich be in free agency, right? He's been on a hot streak for a little while now, going into the Olympics, now coming out of the Olympics, getting good deployment. This is back to maybe not the full greatness of Pavel Buchnevich in years past, but he shouldn't be in free agency. So if you can get him, I think that's not only just a stream, that's a potential hold. But if you can get him Wednesday morning and get Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, at least do that. And then we can talk later. But otherwise, get a Shen, get a Neighbors, get a Snuggerud. You probably won't be too disappointed, I don't think, in those 3 games. Dvorsky, potentially in a deeper league. Pius Suter had that really big 1-goal, 2-assist game against Seattle, then had an assist today on the Buchnevich goal. So he's on a bit of a run in your deeper leagues. You can look at a Pius Suter. Okay, so this has been fun. Just talking through some players, talking through some teams with good schedules. Again, look at all the teams that play 4 times because potentially you can fit your games from anybody. So Brian and I will, of course, cover some players that are jumping out and are looking interesting to us in general, not schedule dependent on tomorrow's mega show. So make sure you're subscribed to get that. I'm really excited to finally talk with Brian about actual NHL results because we haven't been able to do that for around a month now. So yeah, make sure you're subscribed. You'll get our mega show. Then you'll have a couple great short shifts coming next week. And we're going to keep pumping out as much content as we can to get you in the best place you can be as you head into hopefully your fantasy playoffs and potentially chase a championship. So thanks for listening. Good luck next week. See you tomorrow for the mega show. Bye.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.